Good morning, everyone. So good to see so many friends on this call. Appreciate it. I'm so glad that you guys were able to join us for our appointments workshop. This was a workshop that we were trying to do earlier in the year, but because of the pandemic, we had to reschedule, and now we're doing it via Zoom. So hopefully this format will work with everyone. I do want to thank the appointment secretary, Ms. Catherine Rivera Hernandez, for joining us today, and then also some of our locals that are actually serving on boards and commissions. And so I appreciate all of you guys being on board online right now and actually sharing a little bit of your story as well. So just a few housekeeping items. You know, if there's questions, please feel free to use the chat box so that way we can make sure that we try to get to as many questions as possible at the very end. And then I think then we'll go from there. So I think what I want to do is thank you guys all for being here, but maybe we can just kind of start into it. I know we'll still have individuals log in and join us for the workshop as we continue to move through. But as we're going through and you're hearing each of the speakers talk about their experience and what they're doing, I hope you're thinking about some of the boards and commissions that you might be interested in as well. I know every time I'm at an event, or usually Costco, that's where people stop me. People are always asking, like, why is California doing X, Y, or Z? And I tell them, well, a lot of that policy is also driven by what's happening on our boards and commissions. So if you want to help shape the way California is moving forward, I encourage you guys to join one of these boards, get one of these appointments, or join one of these commissions. So it's everything. There's hundreds of boards. I'll let Catherine talk about that, but there's hundreds of boards. I tell everybody from everything from landscaping to the fair board to the water board, CSU trustees board. It's really A through Z. And so the Board of Optometry, for instance, I know we just had one of our local doctors appointed to that a couple weeks ago. But, you know, anything you have an expertise on, if you want to help shape California and shape the future about how we're moving forward, I encourage everybody to apply, and hopefully we can get you appointed, because we need more Central Valley voices on these boards. And so with that, let's go ahead and just get started. I know on the Zoom call we have our fabulous, wonderful BC president, Ms. Sonia Christian, who's been great in our community. And so I'm just going to kick off. We're going to start with a question for each of our panelists, and then we're going to go ahead and give it to our appointment secretary to kind of do a presentation and talk about everything. But for Ms. Christian, you know, what advice do you have for those who are searching for ways to become better advocates for their community or the industry that they serve?
Well, first of all, thank you, Assemblymember Rudy Salas, for keeping us #Valley Strong. And my personal perspective as an immigrant and a naturalized U.S. citizen is one of deep appreciation for the open government and democratic process we have in the United States of America. What Rudy Salas is doing today by creating the space for this conversation to encourage participation in the design of policy from Kern County and people from the Central Valley truly is America at its very best. So I'm honored to be part of this discussion. In terms of advice, I would say number one is focus on the work that you're doing now. So friends, again, I recognize most of you who are participating. You're here today because you're engaged with issues that matter to the health and well-being of our communities. You give hours of your time, your brain power, your soul to the courageous work that you do, not for your personal gain, but truly for the betterment of the community. So if you're interested in serving in a larger way by becoming an appointee of the governor or the legislature, focus on the work now. Immerse yourself in the issues and problems you're trying to solve, understand the details, understand perspective. In some ways, it is important to understand the opposing viewpoint. This is detailed, careful preparatory work that puts you in a good place when the opportunity presents itself. My second tip would be to try to systematically move from passion to developing knowledge and expertise. You see, I spent 2 decades of my professional life focused on improving graduation rates with equity. So when I arrived as a foreign student at USC, I didn't know about California's higher education master plan and the role of community colleges until I got my first job teaching at Bakersfield College, the best community college in the nation. The diligent work that I was engaged in is why I was tapped on the shoulder to put in my application to be an appointee to the Student-Centered Funding Formula Committee, which is a 12-member committee. Now I continue to hone in my expertise in other areas that I'm passionate about. And there is a kind of through line of integrity when we develop expertise grounded in interest and passion. I'm now focused on increasing baccalaureate attainment in California with equity, and I'm developing my expertise by tracking policy deliberations happening at CSU trustees, and we'll be hearing from John Nylon shortly, and also the regents at the University of California. So passion to expertise. And my last tip quickly is to maintain perspective. You know, the issues we are deliberating on are serious, and we need to engage sincerely and smartly. It's important. But policy work inevitably brings heartbreak. It brings losses, and it brings compromise. And I'm sure Assemblymember Salas has scars to show for that. So for my sanity and well-being, I practice not to take myself too seriously. Speaking from my own experience on the student-centered funding formula, the deliberations are intense. Most votes are not unanimous. The work is done in the public eye. So keeping a sense of humor and perspective, and I go for walks with my golden retriever, Neo, just helps me bring my best self to the table. The Central Valley is a very important part of the California story, friends. We do need to be at the table to keep California strong. It is up to each of us. And when the opportunity knocks on the door, don't hesitate, grab the chance, and go through the process necessary to get your name on the list for Catherine Rivera Hernandez to consider. So thank you, Assemblymember Salas. Back to you.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that and sharing those words. Obviously, as a community, when we all do our part, we create a stronger community. And yes, Valley Strong, absolutely. So appreciate that. Next up, we have John Nylon. John's on the CSU Board of Trustees. John's been around in our community for a long time. Thank you, John, for joining us. And just a quick question to kind of kick you off for the next couple minutes. What experience led you to serve on a state board?
Thank you very much, Assemblyman Salas. It's an honor to be here today. I served, as you had mentioned, in local government for about 32 years and as an executive. So that helped a lot as I started my trusteeship on the California State University Board of Trustees, which is the trustees for the largest four-year institution in the nation, over 400,000 students, 32 campuses, 4 million alumni, and it was indeed the highest honor of my career to be selected by the alumni to serve as the alumni representative. So I really enjoyed that. But the question really is bigger than just what I brought to the table. I think it's, as we look at these boards and commissions, everybody brings something to the table. It could be just a local perspective about a hot issue. It could be a global perspective about budget and finance. But I think your background has to be one. These boards have to have some diversity, and I think that's why there's a call to the Central Valley. We have a Central Valley perspective, we have grit, we have the things necessary to make a difference in our community, but can also make the difference on a statewide board. So it's a really interesting dynamic. You bring with you your background, your skills, your passions, your interest, and you serve on these committees, and you serve not just for the Central Valley, but for the entire state. Yet, the Central Valley perspective is what I think provides some real honest discussion about what needs to happen statewide. So I think everybody who's on right now, who's looking in, has something that they can offer to a board and commission. There's no cookie cutter approach. What it is I think, as Sonia mentioned, it's about passion, it's about interest, it's about heart, and it's about service. So thank you very much. And one little shout out to the Assemblyman. He has done more than any Assemblyman I know to improve local government, especially related to Kern Medical Center, which is now called Kern Medical. Well done. What a legacy. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the shout out. But, for KMC, when it was going to be shut down, it was really a lot of us getting together in a room to make sure that we didn't lose that asset for our community. So I appreciate everybody that helped with that struggle. And I'm glad we still have it around. So with that, we're going to move to Miss Raji Brar. I don't know if you've seen the billboards, but she's unstoppable. And Ms. Brar serves on the California Regional Water Control Board. And just a quick question to kick you off. What motivated you to become involved?
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Rudy, for that. And Rudy, thank you for saving Kern Medical. As a current board member, we're really excited about all the work we're doing here in the community. It's an honor to be a part of this panel. I'm happy to be with you all today. I want to talk a little bit about what motivated me, and also I want to share with you what I think you can do to help get involved. First and foremost, I wanted to make a difference. I was raised by my family to be of service to my community and others, and that's just how I grew up. My first foray into public service was as a city council member. I ran for office because I wanted to make a difference for my community. And as a business owner at that time, I had concerns that I felt the city was not adequately addressing, and I wanted to change it. And what kept me motivated to continue to stay involved, even after my term was over, is what I discovered while I was in office. Before I ran, I always assumed I live in America, the greatest country in the world. We must have the most qualified and in-depth leaders in office. Well, once I was in office, I realized that was not always the case. It was actually a very frightening realization. And I learned that many times folks in positions of power were not always the most qualified or educated on issues, and many times did not share the view that I believed served a greater good. And I realized that I needed to stay involved if I wanted to have a say in the outcome of my future and ultimately my children's future. And after my tenure was over as a council member, I continued to stay involved in public service in a non-elected capacity by serving on community boards and eventually being appointed by the governor to the Fair Board and currently the Water Board. And my advice to all of you is, if you have the desire to serve your community, I encourage each of you to look at what you are passionate about. What is it that motivates you and gives you purpose? And be cognizant of the fact that purpose crosses all disciplines. Then you must find a board or commission that aligns with that purpose. You all have undergone experiences that are unique to you, and you have a perspective that is specific to you that no one else has. And you must figure out what it is and how, along with your educational background, your professional background, how can you help to further enhance the mission of the board you are interested in serving on. And ultimately, you will have to be able to articulate that to the appointments team. And it's crucial that all of you understand that you have to make decisions which will be in the best interests of all Californians, not just a select few. And I can tell you firsthand how important it is for this administration to ensure that all people, regardless of race, gender, religion, are equally represented at the state level. And for any society to function in harmony, all people must feel represented. And I believe it's our civic responsibility to be part of this process. I believe what we are seeing in 2020 is a ramification of what happens when folks feel they're not being seen or heard. You know, we are a government by the people, for the people. We all need to be involved in it. It's our civic duty. And the beauty of it is, elected office is not the only way to make a positive change. You can also make a difference by serving on a board or commission, whether it be at the state, county, or local level. And I would say that that is what has kept me motivated all these years to continue to be of service to my community, is when I see the positive outcomes that occur. And it's so wonderful to see all of these familiar faces. And I see folks from Fresno on here and Bakersfield on here and all of my friends. And I'm just so happy that you guys are engaged and want to be a part of the process. So I encourage you, to figure out what you most align with and look at these boards and get involved. And so thank you all. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to speak with you today.
All right, thank you, Raji. Appreciate that and all the insight. Obviously, you need to find what drives you. And if you want to be that change in the community, you need to go out and be a part of it and do it. And appreciate your words. Next up, we have Dr. Jeffrey Garcia, who was just recently appointed to the California Board of Optometry. So he's probably one of the latest appointments that just occurred. So he just went through all of this. So Dr. Garcia, can you just tell us what experiences led to you being appointed on the board? You're on mute, Jeff.
Better? Yeah, thank you, Rudy, and your staff for always being so supportive for all of us on this panel. and for doing so much for the Central Valley. Again, thank you. You've really made a huge difference. So yeah, I think you're right. I probably am the newest board member in the state of California. So I'll give you my perspective on what I had to do to get appointed and the process. First, I would just say to any of you who are considering, and just remember that this is a huge responsibility and commitment to represent not only your industry, if that's what your board or commission is, but more importantly, to represent the people of the state of California. My particular board is a 4-year commitment. I'm not sure if they are all 4-year, but nonetheless, it is a huge responsibility and commitment. So I would say, first of all, think about that seriously. And like the other commissioners and board members have said, you have to choose the one that you truly have a passion for. And that's kind of been the common thread of what we're all saying is choose wisely and choose a board or commission that really touches your heart. I think that's the most important, and do it for the right reasons. Don't come in with an agenda. Come in with the idea of doing what's best for the state of California and for your industry. I would say also consider seeking out past or current board members on the commission or board that you're interested in, and use them as a mentor and ask them what their responsibilities are and what they liked and what they didn't like about serving. I think it's important to know what you're getting into and take that step and reach out to those that are currently serving and ask them about it. What level of engagement is needed? What are the commitments in terms of time? All those are important things to have answered before you take the next steps. And then search out the board or commission that you're interested in and find out what vacancies are available and when they come out. For example, on mine, for the California Board of Optometry, I've been watching this for many years, probably about 10 years, waiting for a vacancy to come open, because you may find that once people serve, they will serve out their 1 or 2 terms, and there may not be a lot of seats available. So timing is important. Watch for the vacancies and apply early. The application itself was relatively simple. It was a little bit more simple than I expected. It was all online. You fill out the application online. It takes maybe about 30 minutes at the most, and you hit send, and that really starts off the process. You'll need to provide 3 personal or professional references, and they will contact them. In fact, that was in my case anyway. They were all contacted and interviewed for a short period of time, asking about their relationship with you and how they feel you would be qualified for that particular board position. You'll also need to provide an updated or current resume and CV, so make sure you work on that, make it as accurate and positive as you can. And then interviews, that will come next. So if you reach a point to where the board or the committee feels you're worthy of an interview, they will set up a series of interviews. I had 2 sets of myself with a panel of interviewees. And they will ask a lot of really good questions, and they're really trying to get at why you're interested and how you feel you're qualified and what you feel you can contribute. So just have that in mind and have those answers kind of prepared mentally, or even write them down so you can be prepared, because I'm sure whichever board or commission you apply for, there's probably other people applying for the same seat. The whole process for me took about 3 months, and I'm sure they're all different, and COVID, I'm sure, impacted that quite a bit. But it took about 3 months from the application process to the interviews, and then finally to acceptance for the position. So apply early, I think is important. Know what you're getting into, do your research, do your homework, and I think you'll all really enjoy your public service. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Appreciate that. I appreciate all of our first panelists actually sharing some of their advice, some of their expertise. I think one of the things I would probably mention, because I see Mr. Chavez is on the line or on the Zoom too, and he was probably one of the youngest appointments when he got appointed. So you could have 30 years experience, or you could just be very passionate about something. That shouldn't discourage anybody from applying for an appointment or a commission. to any of these boards. And so I'd encourage anybody that's thinking about looking at any appointment, board, or commission to actually apply. It's really your passion, what drives you. How do you want to make a difference for your community and for all of California? And so with that, we're going to go ahead and just turn it over to our appointment secretary. Thank you, Ms. Catherine Rivera Hernandez, for joining us. And if you could kind of lead us into the next part, what you look for in appointments, what types of boards and commissions are available, kind of walk us through that entire process, please.
Sure. So I just want to start out by saying it says that my internet connection is unstable. So I really have my fingers crossed that you are able to both see and hear me as I speak, but please let me know if that is not the case. Thank you, Assemblymember Salas, for having this. Thank you to your staff also for putting this on. As you mentioned, the need for representation from the Central Valley is critical, and the governor acknowledged that from day one for me, that this was an area that we needed, not just what I would say a token representation, but really an overhaul of representation throughout the administration from this area. I spent 16 years on the Agricultural Labor Relations Board, so I am very familiar with the Central Valley, and I am also know that when we talk about the Central Valley, it is not one place. It is many places, just like California's many Californians, and it's the reason why we need people to apply and engage. And I'm really excited to see all of these people taking time out of their day during a very stressful time for all Californians to participate. I'm very hopeful that some people will choose to apply. I just want to thank Dr. Christian too for her work, because I'm a product of a community college. It was my trampoline, as I say, and was critical to me ending up where I am now. I think the other panelists on here are really evidence of what we are trying to do across the board, which is that diversity of, when we talk about with the governor about diversity, I mean, we know we need, about ethnicity and gender, but what we really talk about is that diversity of history and the diversity of experiences that people bring. And that often comes from where we grew up and where we live and work and raise our families. It's the type of experience for someone like myself. I grew up in Arizona. My parents were farm workers. Both found their way to entry-level jobs, but they had me when they were 20. I went to first grade in clothes that my mother made me. And for me, that type of experience is what I use. Really, it's a vivid reminder every day of the challenges that people across California, especially now, are really having to deal with. And so that's when, when I refer to sort of bringing those experiences forth, that is really what we are looking for. And that is why we do have the conversations that we have that Jeff described with our appointees. The resume is always going to be there, but I will tell you that is not what the governor is looking at when we talk about appointments. We really do talk about the individuals. I want to just try to briefly, because I really want to answer people's questions, just to try to remove the mystery around the application process. It is not, I know I have a fancy title, but it is not a glamorous job. And I told the governor that. I said, I'm running an employment agency. I am a talent scout. I've got 3,000 positions throughout state government to fill. And so the idea that, you sit in your fancy office and talk to people on Zoom and only the important people and all of that is just a falsehood. Because of the size of California, we do, as Jeff pointed out, use the online application process. We have to. So that really is, as he said, the first step in this. People will often say you need to know someone, and that's also not true. I think if you do know somebody, absolutely use them. As the assembly member, when he has quality people that he wants to refer, he definitely lets me know. So I'm not saying don't use individuals, absolutely. If you have people, but make sure that they're attesting to your commitment or your skill or why it is you want to serve where you want to serve, not merely, hey, this person's great, you should appoint them. We really are looking for a context around those individuals. But what I will say is if you don't know anybody, just look at Steve Gordon, our director of Department of Motor Vehicles. He was sitting in, Silicon Valley reading the newspaper about how awful, another awful story about the DMV, and thought he could be helpful. So he went online, he filled out an application, we pulled his application, and he is now the director of the Department of Motor Vehicles. And so it definitely is not necessary. Also, as mentioned, we really do have something for everyone. Teachers, lawyers, nonprofit leaders, private sector, public sector, education, optometrists. We have something for everyone. So I think they will provide, your office is providing this, but it is also online, and there is a list that will tell you all of the boards and commissions, and then it will also tell you where the openings are and what type of position it is, whether you have to be a licensee, whether you have to be practicing in that area, or what we have on all of our boards, and that is the public slot. And that is really supposed to be somebody that is not necessarily operating in that arena, but really is the accountability for the rest of California, and also for us, sort of the eyes and ears for the governor's office. So there are public slots for pretty much every position, every board. And I really encourage you to take a look at that, and it'll tell you when they are coming up. And also we have a list of deputies who are assigned to each of those areas. And so that's also helpful because you can also reach out to them directly, and they will be responsive. Often you can schedule a call with them even to walk through your ideas or where you think you might be a good fit. I have been through this process myself 5 times. So when I came in, I brought a very, different perspective because each time was different. There were better and worse things about each of those processes, but for my team, they understand that I look at this from the perspective of the potential appointee. And so they are very engaged, they are very responsive. It's not hard to schedule some time with them. I think people think, it's going to be difficult to get access. Their emails are right there, and they would be happy to talk with you. So I appreciate, because I know, and Rajji probably knows as well, it is really detailed. I told the governor, we really, I think, test people's perseverance up front on that. And it asks a lot of sensitive questions. Just so you know, it is completely confidential. The only people who see those applications are the individuals in my office, not even outside of my office, not the cabinet, not Ledge, not the chief of staff, not even the governor sees the applications. They really are pretty closely held. And so my advice to people is to just simply be honest. As I mentioned before, we know people have had varied experiences. If somebody has gone through a business failure or bankruptcy, or you made a poor choice when you were young, that's part of who you are. And it very well might be part of why you're seeking to do what you are doing. We have people who have served in prison who are right now some of our best appointees to the board. We have people on the Board of Community Corrections, on juvenile justice. We're looking for those perspectives. So this governor, I've never seen a governor, and I've seen a lot, who is more here for a comeback story. So we're more interested in that. So just, I tell people the only thing, I say is just to be honest, because, dishonesty will take you out of the game, but don't take yourself out of the game. Give us that chance. And then just briefly on the process. So we review the applications. What I will say is that if we're looking for a certain slot, we don't pull every applicant for that slot. We are often putting together a puzzle when we're looking at a board or commission. We're looking for different perspectives. As Dr. Krishna said, we don't want everybody to have the same way of thinking. We want somebody who might bring, a racial justice lens to issues, which these days really should be a part of every board and commission. We do, look for lawyers sometimes when there's a need for that, or accountants, and somebody financial, somebody who is, who knows how to organize. We really do have people from all over the spectrum, and we are often looking for a specific type of person, or we might have a specific type of person in mind. And so we will pull from that. And, but what I will say is this: because of where you live, you will, in many cases, already have a leg up because of the lack of representation that we currently have. So we are often, for almost every board or commission, pulling from the Central Valley throughout. And sometimes it's might be a little more specific. You know, we might have someone from Fresno and Tulare and need somebody from Kings. You know, we sometimes will dive that deep, but you have an advantage off the bat because we're trying to address that issue. I would also suggest Googling the Border Commission that you're interested in. That will tell you a lot about the type of work and how much work it is. It will tell you how often they meet, for how long, and it really will give you the issues, you know, handle on the issues. I mean, I spent 4 years in the Davis administration and never heard of the California Horse Racing Board. But day one, when I started with this governor, it was all we talked about. And we have completely turned that board over. Did exactly what I said about, you know, sort of setting up a puzzle and sort of, you know, so there wasn't more groupthink. We want everybody to be able to engage. We appointed the first African-American woman to that board recently. So, but what I will say is that board's going to be in the papers and will continue to be in the papers. So if you're uncomfortable in those types of situations, then that's not the board for you. But it will give you an idea of how controversial the issues are. And it's just an important part, I think, of doing your homework in that area. And then after that, once we think you might be a fit, as mentioned, there are a series of interviews that will occur at the department level, at the agency level, at the governor's office level. And so, you know, I think I was happy to hear actually the 3 months, every appointment is different. It really depends on what we are trying to do. If we're appointing 3 people to a board, it may take longer because we do it all at once. 3 months is probably on the short end, although I have completed an appointment process in 2 weeks before when needed. And mainly that is because there might be shifting priorities, and there are so many. So we may be on track you know, to move forward on an appointment, and then something blows up and we need to go, you know, the deputy needs to go address that and needs to put that process on hold. But again, what I will say is that the deputy will tell you where they are in that process. We are honest in this, you know, I said people just want to know where they stand, and for good or bad. And so they will at least be able to share as far as where we are in that process. And then it really is about, you know, I go in every week with the governor to do appointments. I usually take in at least 20, sometimes more, along with all of the other sort of big picture issues that we're trying to resolve. And as I mentioned, we really do just talk about the individual. And then he signs off, and then you are announced in a press release. And then the hard work begins, and that is you then have to serve. And so I will stop there just in case there are questions.
Appreciate that, and appreciate that perspective and what you're looking at. I know some of the questions are starting to come in through the chat box, but just very generic question is, where do people go to start the application? Where can they find a list of the boards and commissions that are currently have vacancies? So if you could share that with everyone, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah, it's just on the, it's the gov.ca.gov website, and there's an appointments tab that you click on, and it will say online application. And then if you scroll down, it will have the list of, which is updated monthly because it changes every month, the list of current available boards and commissions, and then also the deputy list of who is assigned to those areas.
Got it. Okay, and I think I'm putting that in the chat box for the link if anybody needs that. And then there was a question that came in, you know, what's the average time requirement? How often do the boards and commissions meet?
So each board and commission is different. So I hesitate to, I mean, I don't think there's anything that's weekly. I think it's monthly for the most part. Some might meet quarterly, but the time that they meet for, there might be a board that meets once quarterly, but meets for 2 days, or for a certain number of hours. I think if you Google it and look at the agendas, you'll be able to get a really good handle on how often and for how long they're meeting.
Got it. And then maybe we could ask some of our panelists, how often do they meet with the boards and commissions that they're on?
Hi, Rudy. For the Fair Board, we used to meet like once a month. And for the Water Board, we meet every other month, but we meet for 2 days. So as Catherine mentioned, every board and commission is different. But definitely look at that, because it's not just the days that you're there. There's prep work that goes in on being on those boards. And there's a lot of time that you do when you're not at the meetings. So there's a lot of prep work that goes in, and learning about certain issues depending how detailed it is. But mostly I would say you're looking at once a month versus every other month, but at least a few days.
From the CSU Board of Trustee perspective, it meets formally quarterly. However, depending on the various committees that you may serve on, you may spend time between each quarter at meetings. For instance, if you're on a presidential search committee, you will probably have to go to that campus. It will probably take 2 or 3 days for a community awareness activities. Then you go back, review all the resumes and CVs, then you meet again to shorten the list. So it's a lengthy process sometimes between the formal meetings, and the formal meetings are 2-day meetings, as I mentioned, quarterly.
Yes, and thank you for your work, John. I know you're not one of our parties, but as you mentioned, anything in education, but especially the trustees, and especially right now, it's almost another full-time job to serve. So thank you for that.
Great. And then I think we had a question that came in. So they applied for a position late last year, never heard back. Would they need to reapply for positions as more vacancies become available? Do you hold over an application, or how does that work?
If you submitted an application during the time of the Newsom administration, which it sounds like you did, then we would still have it. What I would recommend is to get in touch with the deputy that is responsible for what you applied for, and ask them about timing. If, again, a lot of it would depend on what it was, when the terms are up, and what sort of quality or skill we were looking to fill at that time. But it would be a good conversation to have with them.
Got it. And then if someone's interested in multiple boards, would you recommend that they apply for one board at a time, or is it do an application and cast a wide net? What would your recommendation be?
So, I mean, it's a delicate balance. One is, we know people have varied interests in multiple areas. So I would absolutely, check off their boxes, check off any of the areas that you have an interest in. But it's a delicate balance. If you check off 50 boxes, then we lose the ability to really know what is that is kind of driving you. But the other thing that I will say, as Raji can attest to, is we will often have candidates for certain boards. I mean, especially those that have already, or who are already serving or have served really successfully. And we will often call them and ask them to serve on something else, or would you like to be considered for something else? Because we think you would be a good fit over here. And so you're also not limited in that respect. We will often reach out, and it's okay to say no. I mean, I get told no every day, multiple times, just so it's clear. It's okay. It doesn't hurt you to say, I'd rather have you say no, that's not for me, it's something I'm interested, because it won't stop us from coming back to you again. So it's really kind of just a kind of a delicate balance as far as, just expressing what you're really putting me.
Got it. And if someone's serving on like an advisory council right now, would you say that should they include that in their application and some of the work that they're doing, or does that disqualify them from other positions?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think people who are already serving in some capacity, whether it's at the state or local level, I think it's very helpful for us to be able to see that.
All right. And then here's another question that came in. For questions on a position, do you recommend reaching out to the deputy responsible for the position?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would absolutely reach out to them.
All right. I think you froze there, Catherine. I think you froze
Sorry,
there.
am I back?
You're back.
The answer was yes. Yes, you should reach out to the deputy for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Let me ask. I think I've kind of touched upon a lot of the questions in the chat box. So let me just ask. So once you apply, if you have, when can people expect to hear back from your office in terms of whether it's a yay or a nay, or they'll keep the application on, you'll keep the application on file? Should they reapply every 6 months, every year?
No, I mean, there really is no need to reapply because I think, as Jeff pointed out, it's all about timing and priority. It's a real mix of what we're focused on at that looking for. And that is something that the deputy can at least share and should share. And you know, I told them, again, we're honest, sometimes brutally, but not because it's about the candidate. It's really about a fit that we're trying to find. So I would really kind of establish that relationship so that when there is an opening, you're the one that they were, you know, remember hearing from.
Got it. And you said those vacancies are updated monthly on the website? All right, let me ask if there's any other questions because I don't see any more in the chat box. I don't know if our panelists have any questions of the appointment secretary. No. All right, anything else you want to share with us, Catherine? I feel like we're doing great on time. And
So there's actually one more question in the chat box. It says, you know, if there's not a current vacancy on the board that one is interested in, how can they be placed on a wait list until there is a vacancy?
My computer froze again, so I only caught the end of that about if there's not a vacancy. Sorry, Katie.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. So if there is not a vacancy on a board that one is interested in at the time, can they be placed on a wait list until that vacancy may be open? Can we, you know, deal with that?
Yes, that's exactly how it would work. It would be, the deputy would keep a tracker, and then when that came up, they would reach out. Again, it would depend on what we're looking for at that time, but they should at least reach out and let you know that, you know, this is where we are in the process.
great. Okay, let me ask if there's any other additional questions. Looking, I'm trying to scroll through. Okay, I think everything's been answered. So with that, let's go ahead and just move to closing comments for the last like 8 minutes. That way we're on time here. So let me just first start off with our appointments. Well, maybe we'll conclude with you, Catherine, if that's okay. Maybe let me ask my panelists if they have any final comments.
This is John again. I would just offer it is probably the most meaningful thing you can do personally. It is interesting, it is important, and it adds value not only to the policy that's being engaged in the statewide, but to you personally, because I think you gain a perspective that you wouldn't necessarily see in any other environment, and yet you still have a voice. So I think it's an incredible opportunity. I encourage every one of you to consider applying for some commission or board. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Rudy, I would agree with what John had to say. I think the most valuable thing I've learned from serving on the boards and commissions is how it's helped enhance other aspects of my life, whether it's in business and dealing with my children and dealing with other community issues, even dealing with our nonprofit. It's such an education. And I'm sure the reason you all are here online is because you are concerned about giving back and being part of the process. And obviously you guys love to learn, and this is a wonderful way to keep growing and learning. And you learn about the interesting part of being on the state boards is you are serving with folks from all up and down the state. And many times when they see like a Central Valley face, I always get the puzzled look. You're from Bakersfield? Yes, I'm from Bakersfield. But it's like you get to know each other and work with each other and understand that the whole state, we're all facing the same type of issues, whether you're from the Central Valley, the South, or the North. And I've made some wonderful friendships with my fellow board members, and they've all learned about Kern County. And I want to say I've changed some opinions. And I think that is something that is so vitally important right now. And I mean, look at what we're all witnessing every day right now, right? So that is why, especially as a state, we all should at least be able to come together. And as Catherine had mentioned, that is so important that the Central Valley gets represented, because we have to be a part of the process. And it's absolutely a wonderful experience. And I can't tell you how much I've learned and grown from being on these boards. And again, thank you, Assemblymember Salas, for this opportunity, and Catherine, thanks for doing this. And she's correct. Her staff and her team is very welcoming, and they're not scary. They take care of you. They make you feel comfortable. So that is something I noticed. I felt very comfortable in communicating with them. So thank you, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Raji. Let me ask our other panelists if they have any concluding remarks.
Nothing more than what Raji and John had said. I do want to underscore that the staff, both assembly members as well as in Catherine's office, are extremely, extremely, extremely helpful. And looking at those of you participating, you have hearts that want to serve. And the opportunity to impact certain levers that have this profound impact in our region is significant. And there's a lot of value that you're going to get for your own fulfillment. So it's a great opportunity. Make sure you apply.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Christian. Please, Jeff.
Yeah, Rudy, I just want to reiterate what everyone else was saying, having just gone through the process, that it really was a lot simpler than I expected. And the staff was awesome, from your local staff all the way up to the state. They really helped facilitate the process, made it easy. Don't be intimidated to apply if you're considering. Please do that. I did look at the list of boards today. I did not realize there were so many, but there are many, many. So take a look at that list, and you might see other areas that you might find interest in as well, maybe beyond what you might be thinking initially. But I would encourage you to do it. It was a relatively easy process, and I look forward to serving on the California Board of Optometry and the people of California. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me just ask Catherine before she does her comments. I do want to say thank you publicly for her and her team. They've always been very receptive, very open, very transparent about the entire process, and I appreciate her availability and always responding to phone calls and text messages. And so I really do truly appreciate that, Catherine, especially as we're moving through and trying to get more Central Valley voices on these California boards and commissions. And I appreciate you mentioning that we need that voice. We know a lot of the growth in California is actually occurring in the Central Valley and in the Inland Empire, and having our perspective shared on these boards and commissions helps shapes the future of California and which direction we're moving in. And I know Ms. Brar talked about shaping some of those opinions on some of the boards and commissions as well, but it's so vitally important that we have everybody, hopefully on this Zoom call, applying for these boards and commissions. And with that, Ms. Catherine, please.
Right. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. I really hope some of you will think about applying. If you do, please reference this event so that my team knows and so that they can also flag it for me. Just a couple things that people didn't ask, but I just wanted to mention, and that is that people often ask what boards are the most competitive, and I will just say, because we have representatives here, it's like the education is probably one of the right after film commission, which if I had a dime for every time somebody wanted to be on the film commission, I wouldn't need this job. Thousands upon thousands of people want to be on there. It's exciting. So I don't begrudge that, but that's a tough field. Education is probably right after that. And it's great because people really care about it and it's important. But it's probably, and not that you shouldn't apply, I encourage everybody to throw their name in the hat because we are always looking for a different mix of folks, but it is a tough area to go through the process. So there's that. And then also I just wanted to mention that the governor signed a bill last year and just so that people know that you don't have to, to be a citizen anymore. And so we recently appointed a young woman who was undocumented to the community college board. We have undocumented individuals serving in my office, serving in the governor's horseshoe, serving at every level of government. And so I just put that, I think it's important for people to know that. Other than that, like I said, I just really hope you'll consider applying. And I just appreciate you all taking the time today to listen to my sales pitch.
No, we appreciate you. We appreciate your time and appreciate everybody's time for sharing an hour of your time this morning and being on the Zoom call with us to kind of go over this very important topic. And like I said, I hope you guys are inspired and encouraged all to apply for these positions because we really need you. We really need your voice and we really need your perspective in shaping this state of California. We're a diverse community, almost 40 million people. And when we all do our part, I think we create a stronger society and a stronger form of government and a stronger California. So with that, I would just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you guys for being on the call. And if you have any questions about appointments or anything else, always feel free to reach out to the appointment secretary or reach out to my office. We're more than happy to get you a list or to help connect folks as well. So with that, I just want to say thank you all and appreciate everybody being on.